Hello everyone, welcome to my class again. I wanted to finish up last time colonialism, the first section of colonialism, but we didn't have enough time, so we couldn't finish colonialism. But today I want to finish colonialism 1 and 2 completely for this week. So last time we talked about how so we try to understand the Arthur Collins argument. The Arthur Collins argument actually is that South Korean's development state was transformed from the Japanese colonial rule, and then he started with the argument, the descriptions, how Japanese government or colonial governments have influence on transformations of states. So today I want to finish up Arthur Collier for sure. And then I wanted to start Haggard Haggard and Kang's article. So I'm not sure whether you read that or not, but I love Haggard and Kang's article more. It's not just because of their argument per se, but because of its uh, how they dissect Coiley's argument and how they show the different evidence to support their own argument. So that's how you should write when you write about critical articles. That's kind of typical and well written articles. So that's why I liked Haggard and Kang's article more. Well, I want to make sure that we understand the article later on, but let's finish up this first. So I explained like what's wrong with East states, right? So it's not about my argument. It's about Arthur Colli's argument. So Arthur Colli argues that the E states is a predatory state because it exploits things from peasantry, not from Yangban. So Yangban is ruling elites. The Yangban does not contribute agricultural development at all during the E states. So E state is a typical agricultural state. There is no industrialization whatsoever. And then so first thing that he starts with is new civil service. So he emphasized in terms of number. In 1910, there was 10,000 civil servants, but it has been significantly increased. In 1937, 552 civil servants. So they think that the new civil servant, the increased number of civil servants actually contribute to train the Koreans. And later on, these employees, once they were employed, and then they all participate in the South Korean government formation. So that's what their argument. So 552, that number actually very significant in terms of number, right? So they're saying that these people, even though there was war and changes, but still this number contribute to formations of New South Korea. But we should think like that way. I mean, of course, article also mentions why North couldn't survive quite well while South Korea achieved economic growth. It's because South Korea has more beneficial because their main infrastructure that Japan built was located in South. Uh, that's what they mentions. But let's look at the number. Like there are 90, let's say approximately there are 90,000 civil servants. Then we should divide into two because there are north and south. So 90,000, so 45 for each, right? And then let's imagine 45,000 civil servants in 1937, but we should also calculate number of people who died or killed during the Korean War. So that means like among like let's say 45, but 20% people were killed. So then let's say like 30,000 could survive, right? Approximately. then we should also count how many people actually people get aged, so they must retire kind of things. So maybe 15,000 could survive, right? I'm not sure if this is the right number, but let's just calculate like that way. The 15,000 civil servants after uh, the Korean War whatsoever. So do they really can they could they really contribute to transform from predator state to developmental state? And then they think that there is a problem between central and periphery, and they how they overcome this. They say pay high salary, entertainment allowance, prevent corruption, and extract loyalties. So they worry that when they hire Koreans, what if the Koreans betrays, but there is no betrayal because they pay high salary and entertainment allowance. So would this worked to prevent corruption and extract loyalties. So he's saying that Korean people were very loyal to the Japanese government because of this reason. The second is police force. So he's saying that the Japanese colonialism established well organized police force. So high level police, the Japanese usually got the job at high level position, and Koreans were low level police. So they hire Korean as a low level of police because Koreans know every man in the village, so they wanted to control the Koreans. So increase number of policemen, 1 out of every 10 available. So that means like 10% of Koreans were policemen at the time. So that's pretty high. And they also talking about like politics, education, religion, morals, health and public welfare, tax collection were induced during the Japanese colonialism. And they want to be more effective. They use link with local outlets. So alliance with local outlets for birth control, types of crops grown, count and movement of people, mobilization of forced labor. So I explained enough during the class. I just wanted to skip that. I told you that, and I asked the questions why Japan or Japanese colonialism provide education to the people, and what local outlets did for Japanese colonialism. And the politics of new states brutally authoritarianism. So he acknowledged that the Japanese colonialism was pretty brutal, right? So Korean newspapers were either suspended or heavily censored, and political organization movements and public gathering were completely banned. So people couldn't have organizations or any movement or public gathering. So it's like a jail, like you have some freedom, but it's not completely free. And Korean nationalist sentiment were either exiled or remained fragmented. So nationalist movement was never allowed to develop. But it's their hope, right? But as you know, like nationalist movement were prevailed in other states. So that because of this reason, so the Japanese colonialism did not allow any nationalist movement within Korean territory. So many activists were actually went outside to do so. So that's why the establishment temporary government of Korea was established in Shanghai, but not within Korea because it was impossible. And increased number of students, so expansion of education. He also saying that education contribute definitely to the Korean development, and they started to the starting great starting point of this is Japanese colonialism. And Korean political elites favorably inclined toward Japan. But if you're not favored to Japan, then you'll be executed. So actually, the Korean elites has no choice because of that reason. and state capacity to collect taxes from landowners. So that's what we did, right? So we talked about this slide, I guess. State capacity to collect taxes. So landowners, that was Yangban class, high class, upper class. And these upper class did not pay taxes before, but because of this Japanese colonialism, the landowners also pay taxes. And then he also linked to this argument. He also saying that this lower the inequality, social inequality in Korean society. That's also what Hegat and Kang counter argue against this, right? So he's saying that the landowners didn't pay the taxes, but from the Japanese colonialism, landowners started to pay their taxes, and this actually contribute social equality in Korean society. But the Hegat and Kang talked about different story related to that, right? And if you look at the taxes, it was 7.3 million yen in 1905, but it became 24 million yen in 1911. So we can be sure, we can say that like 3 times more than before. So where this taxes from? The taxes from landowners. That's what he argues. And railroads, post office, coal mines, timber were induced and established in Korean territory. So we should also talk about that later on. A land survey mapped all plots of land, classified according to type, grade its productivity, and established the ownership. So they saying that because of Japanese colonialism, we actually could figure it out what kind of crops is best to the land. So that's how the productivity has been increasing in Korean territory. And how did it possible? It's because of this land survey. And infrastructure, so economy enterprise such as railway, tobacco, communication. So this is kind of new business for Koreans, but we should definitely talk about this whether this is true or not. Capital accumulation, so currency was in use for the first time, and there was a bank reform, and at the before the Japanese colonialism, he argues there was no bank system or there was no Koreans didn't know how to accumulate capital, but because of the Japanese colonialism, the Koreans start to accumulate the capital. Wealthy people's involvement in productive activities. So that's what um, Kang and Hegat and Kang actually didn't agree on. The wealthy people's involvement in productive activities, but we are not sure whether this is true or not, according to Hegat and Kang. And boost agricultural production, especially rice. So it increased in rice production from 1910 to 1924 to about 1.5%. So it's not that a lot. But from 1920 to 1935, nearly 3.0 increase per annually. And increase in production did not lead to improvement in food consumption because it is exploited by Japan and forced export. So Hegat and Kang actually argue that there was huge increasement in terms of the rice productivity, but it is according to Hegat and Kang. So it the food improvement of food productivity does not lead to food consumption by Koreans. It's because the Japanese government forced to use these crops or rice to export. And state and industrialization. So this is also one of the arguments that the article mentions. So Japanese firms, food processing industries, exchanging manufacturing goods, and the new business actually started by Japanese firms, and then later on, Koreans also get involved, small scale manufacturing, right? And then these small-scale manufacturings were owned by Korean, and then these are metals, dyeing, paper making, ceramics, rubber shoes, soy sauce kind of things. So this is either food processing industries or manufacturing goods, right? And these industries were actually at first started by Japanese, but later on the Koreans will follow. So this is also showing that the contributes industrialization in Korean states. And 230 factories employed more than 50, so you're saying that there were 230 factories, right? And then the Koreans were owned 49, so 49 factories were Koreans owned, and hydroelectronic power were used too. So before the Japanese colonialism, there was no electronic power in Korea, but after the Japanese colonization, the Koreans started to use electricity and electronic power. And I want to start the 해가 and 해가 된 강 because it criticized one by one of uh, water quality.